Please welcome Mr. Fowler.
Hello everybody.
Hello.
I hope you had a delicious lunch and are refreshed and are full of patience, because you will need it. I have published far too many books. I'm going to use the next period of time as a kind of therapy session to discover why. Why have I published too many books? Some converted manic personal energy. The book has become some outlet for some obsessive, mild mental illness, I would say. It's a safe way to take that energy and condense it into a physical object, an object of sliced tree. That is the question that I have before me. Why do I publish so many books? Why do I impose those books on my friends? Why does almost no one read those books? You're going to help me. I think I might have misunderstood the question of the conference books are made of paper. That's the materiality part sorted, so now we can move on to my therapy. Paper is a sliced tree. I grew up agnostic to books. My parents were literate, but not fully literate in the sense of actively reading. My favourite books were the autobiographies of professional wrestlers and maybe SAS type books. And so right through the early part of my life, the book was something cheap in a charity shop, something burdensome. The thing I would come to love about it later in my life was the thing that I didn't like about it. When I saw the loss of time. A book is an object that holds some time that you're going to lose. Maybe the attitude that changed in my life is I thought if I read, I won't be doing something worse. Whereas when I was younger, I can imagine I'd be doing something better. Because I didn't understand the book, I had no relation. I might be right. I think I'm coming full circle maybe in this moment right now. But when I was young, I was agnostic towards books, I had no interest. And then, through a series of extremely dramatic personal circumstances, which I won't go into, I ended up becoming a bit of a bibliophile while working as a guard in the British Museum. Now, if you work as a guard in the British Museum, essentially what you do is you displace volume for a living. You absorb rude people's questions. A woman once walked up to me, why am I telling you this? A woman once walked up to me and said, "Is this all you do?" Often some of my days, if the Edwardian plumbing would break, would be to guard the toilets. If you want to see an upset person, stop them going into the toilet when they need it. That was my job. But what we were allowed to have is papers. We were allowed to have paper, no phones, no books. So I would go to photocopy machines and photocopy very long novels and fold them into these weird scrunches and tuck them into my back pocket. And the trousers of the British Museum also had the logo. So on my arse, people could see where I worked. And I would read these incredibly long and difficult books because, for the first time, the loss of that time was better than the other thing, which was doing my job, guarding precious objects. I was reading like Joyce, Andre Bely's Petersburg, Vitkiewicz, Sensibility, all of Robert Musil's The Man Without Qualities. I went to Tony White's seminar very early at this time. He educated me on bulk literature. I was reading these incredibly difficult books, but I never had the book in my hand. It was always this photocopied page, and I'd use little markers to mark them off and collect all the quotes. And it started to dawn on me, and this is where I went wrong. Why don't I publish books as well? This was a terrible turn in my life when I decided, well, why don't I contribute? At the time at the British Museum as well, I was getting intellectually curious, and I started to read from books selling in the shop, and curators I would stop if they deigned to talk to me as a scumbag guard about the history of books, the Codex Seraphinus, the mysteries of lost languages, the historical hoaxes. I would go into the stores. 93% of the British Museum's collection is underground, and you can go in if you're a staff member. You go to the papyrus room and smell smelly books. A book smells, yes, physical. And I became a bibliophile, storing books, stacking books. And then, in 2010, I decided to get into it. And the problem with getting into it, especially with poetry, is if you come from this kind of bibliophilia, you don't know that there's a debutante culture. You should wait to publish your first book. Allow them to publish it for you, to announce you to society, in order to prolong success for many years. I published 6 books in my first year. I thought people read books like I did, and they don't. And so what happened to me, which happens to everyone who, I'm sure many of you have published a book, I know people have, is you have to find a little corner of your room where the cardboard boxes can go. That's the main experience of publishing a book, of publishing a book. You need a bit of space under your bed. And what started to happen to me is that I had to find a reason to keep publishing. Because if you publish too many books, what happens is you just start to build up all this storage space issues, and then you need a studio. And you end up with copies and copies of all these different books, full of things that you've spent hours and hours of, and then someone like Tom invites you to a conference and you think, you know what, I could probably get rid of a few of these books. So I'm going to take you through each one of my books that I brought today. There's 22 of my books. I've published more than that, but that's all I could find when I was under my bed last night. This one is a visual poetry book. It's all art poems, so hand-painted and handwritten text, you know, trying to do something exciting in the field of visual art. Did anybody like this book? So that's $9.99, that book. This is a collection called The Wrestlers. It's from 2017. This is actually a proof copy. So though the book hasn't been printed that many times, there's only 5 of these. These are long, post-European, modernist-style poems, actual poems, as a lot of my friends like to say to me. Would anybody like this book? That one's priceless. So if we say maybe $14.99. The Wrestlers, that's called, The Wrestlers. Does anyone speak Estonian? I assume there must be an Estonian speaker in the room.
I'm Lithuanian.
Okay, so that's it translated into Estonian. That's all right. What's the currency of Estonia? Does anyone know the currency?
Books.
Books? We sell a lot of books because of their national identity being wrapped up in their own language and something about independence from Russia. But whatever the currency is of Estonia, you owe me a solid amount for that. Enthusiasm. Quite a rare book. I actually only had 3 of these under my bed last night. This was 2015, published by Test Centre, launched at Max Gallery. I mean, it's significant if anyone cares about it. Oh! Tony White over there. Thanks for the memories of Balkan literature, Tony. That one also, I would say, is $11.99, I would say, Tony. So my PayPal will be up on the screen afterwards. Right, would anybody make me an offer for all of these? Because it's going to take a long time to auction them. So there's about 18 of them, so if we say about 150 quid, it's a discount. Does anyone give me 150 quid for this?
You take IOUs.
I don't take IOUs. Will anyone give me an interesting life experience for these 18 books? What are you kidding for? You can do it, I'm sure you're very interesting. Anyone can be anything. Is anyone got anything exciting in their pocket that they'll give me?
I'll give you an interesting life experience.
Okay. These 18 books are for you.
It's very short.
I don't want it now. I'm in the middle of something. So that's a lot of my bibliography, and that is definitely, you have to buy your own copies. It's too late.
It's a Richard III gold coin.
She's got the books already. How about I just kept one? Oh, well.
That's what you want.
Finally, I feel valued. It's so nice. So, when you publish your own books, you have to pay for copies. So I've probably just given you about 100 quid. But I'm getting paid for today, so that's okay. I'll just take that out of what I've done. One of the problems with publishing a lot of your own books is that you also then get given a lot of books by other people. And that becomes really burdensome. You end up in a situation whereby people give you their books, assuming, because you're giving them their books, like, I'll give you my collection, you read it, they're going to give you your collection. And what they do is they store up even worse than the copies of the books of your own books. And so you have to decide who do you hold more in contempt, yourself for holding books for some moment which will never happen, or the people who actually think I want to read their poetry. I spent enough time pouring my heart and soul into this 180 quid worth of books that I've just given out for nothing at a conference, as if I want to read your poems. My life is just poetry. I teach poetry. I spend all my time thinking giving you ideas for poetry. I really want to go home with these books that you spent your time writing about your difficult divorce or how much you love butterflies or whatever. You don't even read my work, because if you did, you know I wouldn't like your work. So why are you burdening me with this stuff? And I understand why you haven't read my work in a paradoxical situation, because I'm not reading your work. So here we are in a circle, and what's in the circle? The book is a kind of baton, an unreadable thing that people don't read, that they hold, they smell, they put on a shelf, they put under their bed. But is that content that's so special to the individual worthwhile? No, not really. It's too low and head. And I think one of the funny things is you start to then realise, how do you sustain a practice? How is it possible to keep writing? Because I did make the decision that writing is better than doing some of the other things that I might be doing with my life because of the amount of energy I have. I might end up in trouble. So writing is good. How do I keep writing? I need a goal. And what's the goal? The book. The book is the goal. So I'll write books, and that'll keep me on the straight and narrow, and that'll be positive. But if I start to think about how few they actually sell and how few people read them, I'm going to have such disappointment. I will give up. And I don't want to give up, so how do I do it? I do it for myself. I write for myself. I write books as a project because I want to write. And I need to convince people to publish those books for me. And if I can convince some people who are clearly only doing it because they want me to like them or they have some sort of emotional problem, there's nothing worse than a publisher just in the independent scene, because why would they do it? They're losing money, they're in a difficult situation. Look how many books there are in the world. We end up getting to the point then as educators too, where I have to tell my students, listen, you've got to write for yourself. If you don't write for yourself, you know what's going to happen, you're going to quit. And if you quit, you know what you'll end up doing? Something worse than writing books. And so what I've realised, this is a menu. Who's giving me a menu? So what you realise is you have to really write for yourself, and when you're writing for yourself, what you find out is that it's contained within a book, and there's a book that's an object that's about you and your desire, and what's contained inside of it, the initial time, is so difficult to bear because you're never there when the person is reading it. So all of this that I've said that I feel is probably not true. There's probably people actually reading the book, but I will never know that. Once in a while I get a nice email where people have really read it properly, and then I feel strange. I don't even feel good about that. I feel like, well, that's lovely, yeah, thanks, please leave me alone, don't mention this to me again. And it doesn't happen quite enough for me to believe that there's more than the one person. But surely, like many things in life, the only people, the most people who are reading it are not just the ones who email. So why is my attitude that all of these books that people have given me are just the same as mine? People aren't like me, they're more patient, they're more thoughtful. My books arrive to them at different parts in their lives. But if I actually spend time thinking about what other people experience when they're reading it, I would give up. And that would be sad. Because while my work is not commercially successful or palatable, it does keep me from going to prison. And I think everyone here can appreciate that that is a good reason to keep publishing books. We're in a moment now where I think you've listened to me enough, and I would like you to join me in some writing. So, if you don't mind, if anyone has a pen, I'm going to bring you a book, and we can all have some writing together. Which is the most writing row? There'll be nothing scary. This is just a piece of paper. Unless you're scared of paper. Is that a kind of phobia? The back row, it must be. The most thoughtful row. I will just lay this on your lap and you just write away. Have a great time. This is a book for you. Let's pick another row. Now, what could you write about? I don't know. What inspires you? Butterflies. Oh my God, my recent divorce. Add to the pile of wonderful published material. Oh, I'm to my book. Pick the book up. Do you think front row? I don't think so. There's RCA staff at front row. And that's not the point of it. Let's go middle row. Look at your earrings. You're going to write about your earrings. Lucky you. One more, I would say. One more row that writes a book. Does anyone need a pen? We've got loads of pens here. Do you need a pen? Let's take this book here. What inspires you? What can you get off your chest? Will anyone read this book? Almost guarantee that they won't. This row, I think, is very full. There we go, friends. You can write your book and your story and everything that you want to achieve in your life, all the things that inspire you. Now we're going to make a human book. I am going to be a human book here for all of you.
Can I have this over here?
I am becoming the bookman. The bookman who is the gateway to knowledge. I'm in the right kind of institution. A kind of mummy from my time at the museum. I am a walking book, more useful than the others that are littered around this stage. Still kind of slowly getting over the fact that no one bought my books at the temporary auction. Most of them were given out. Wrap the bookman, make him paper. This is a human book, not a candle, not printed matter in a monastery. Well, I didn't enjoy that book very much. Let's go out into the audience and wrap me, dear friends. Anybody like to write anything on me? I'll close my eyes so it's not awkward. Anyone want to write anything down? Only white would if I was close to it. The bravest at the back, that's what they say, that's the phrase. The bookman, keep rapping, the mummy's work is never done. How about you, madam, would you be willing to write on me? You don't have to, it's voluntary. So much, that's so kind. I feel like being treated with a lot of book charity there. The bookman moves forward. I am the bookman. My books are like an English breakfast. Very filling. Okay. I think we're booked. Thank you, ladies. That's very kind. So, I believe, Tom, you said you wanted a Q&A. Any questions?
I'm scared of paper cuts.
You know what? I was going to talk about paper cuts earlier, but I didn't want to come across as smug. No.
Is that Sainsbury's till receipt? And if so, do we get any next points?
It is a till receipt, but I don't know from what supermarket. A friend of mine gave me them, knowing that I would find use for them, and here they are. They're a good question. Are you familiar with the Sainsbury's till receipts? Are they specific? That's sad. I'll give you my nectar. Any more questions for the bookman?
Does it get lonely?
It does get lonely being the only bookman in the Royal College of Art, you know. It's a lonely life, but the life of paper is the path that I have chosen to walk, and I believe you will join me on that path.
How long will you live?
How long does the bookman live?
Yeah.
It depends on the conservators of the bookman. How they treat me in their resin, how they house me. But no, I'll probably die quite soon, to be honest.
Have you ever destroyed it?
I have, you know. Where did that question come from? Hello! I did a lot of performances for a long time where I destroyed books. And once I ate a book. And I thought about doing that today, but then I remembered what that was like. And I didn't. But for a long time, my launches, because I found launches to be very unpleasant, because you're inviting your friends to come and celebrate something you've done they don't really care about, I would destroy the book I was launching and give out all the pages to the audience. So I thought about doing that today, but I thought, no, something different. So thank you for asking. How about you? Have you ever destroyed a book?
By accident.
Oh no, what happened?
I threw a book to my sister and it didn't reach her and it just completely exploded.
Whoa!
I'm pretty guilty about it.
Give me an exploding book later and I'll use it for the next time. I'm sure I'll invite you. Any more questions for the bookman? It's a one-time opportunity.
Do you use AI?
Never.
Why not?
Why don't I use AI? Terrifies me, AI. Yes, I think I've already witnessed in the young people that I amazingly have taught to teach, that it is, yes, well let's not rant about it, but it is deleterious to the human condition, in my opinion. And I like physical things. The world is out there. Let us stay away from computers. It's a long, boring thing. You know what I mean. Any more? Yes.
Will you ever be finished?
Sorry, sir.
Will you ever be finished?
The bookman will never be finished. It's an endless striving quest. How about yourself? Do you think you'll finish?
I mean, I'll die.
Yes, well that's when the bookman will finish too. In the grave. Turning white!
When's your next book coming out, Stephen?
Yes, well, you are painfully accurate with that, Tony. My next novel's coming out in October, actually. October, my next book is coming out, and one of the 18 books I gave out came out like 2 weeks ago. That'll get lost in the shuffle.
What's more performative? The writing, the reading, or the talking about it?
More performative.
Yeah.
What I loved about reading when I first discovered it in my bibliophilia was the first time in my life I was doing something that wasn't for other people. When I was alone with a book that truly transported me away because my prefrontal cortex was down-regulated and I was in the flow state of reading, I thought, the joy of this, no one can see it. This can't be for other people. This is not me being desperate for other people's attention. Ironic that I say that now. So I think that is extremely private. And then the writing itself, as I say to my poor students, if it goes well, you lose a day. If it goes badly, you despise yourself. Who would do that? So it's definitely the talking about it, because I don't ever talk about it in a straightforward way, I would say. Would you agree?
I'm not talking about my books.
You're right to shrug. Anyone else? These have been really good, more than I deserve, let's be realistic. Any final questions?
Do you have Instagram?
I don't have Instagram. No. Because of that thing I said before about the AI. Stay well away from my AI on Instagram. No, I'm here right now. We can shake hands. Yeah.
Are you acid free?
Am I what free?
Acid free.
Acid free? I don't know. I've had some other problems recently. I'm getting a gastroscopy tomorrow. So I think probably not. I hope so. My pH is aligned. Yes!
Are you soft or hardcover book?
Definitely soft. Let's be realistic. When I was, I carried these books from Kentish Town today. Can you imagine the weight of this? I was sweating. And just before I went, because it was my friend Eleanor had thrown the books to me, I thought, don't take any hardcovers. She's going to brain me. So definitely soft covered like all these books around the stage. Any final questions? Yes.
Do you print them yourself, or do you have a publisher? Or?
I've never printed one of my own books, because when I started, people gave me the heebie-jeebies about that. And this is one of the big things that I've learned working with printers and working with amazing bookmakers, is that it's become like a methodological extension of my textual semantic work. It's a creative methodology. But for the first 10 years, I never printed anything, because the self-published poet is something to be feared of. Truly, the amount of people who come up to me as a professional poet writer and go, I'm a poet, and I'm like, oh no, that'd be good. So no, I never did. And yeah, of all 50 books, I've never published my own book, as though that's some sort of barrier to quality. I sometimes feel ashamed about that and should print my own, but I'm not an artist bookmaker, and I even then work with them. So that's a wonderful question. Thank you. Do you?
I want to get into it somehow, but I'm thinking maybe typewriter and I don't do text, so I don't know where to start.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating relationship between the printer and the poet, commissioned one way or another. And what I've tried to do with Angie Butler, who's amazing in here, who's inspired me, it's probably the reason I'm here today, as well as the amazing Tom, John, Richard, is because I always need that person's expertise to realise my words. And if you can do that together, that's very exciting, I think. Thank you.
Thanks.
Any last questions? Well, that was a good bevy of questions. Thanks so much for having me, everybody. Have a lovely day.